Well, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, October 21st, 2014, and we have some echo going on. You guys on the radio with me, if you can mute your website. There you go. Sorry about that. So it is Tuesday, October 21st. It's still a little overcast here in Indianapolis. Feeling a little under the weather, so bear with me here. Just pay attention to what's going on. There's a nor'easter coming up the East Coast that's supposed to bring a lot of rain, and, some leaves that are ready to fall off are going to be clogging up all kinds of stuff. So just get out there beforehand and get your gutters cleaned out and all that loveliness. So why are we here this morning? Well, there's interesting prepper book came out that sparked my attention. It's a little different than the norm, let's just say, and it might look like your everyday prepper survival manual, but once you dig into it, you'll discover that it's really not. It is. Let's give the information here. It's about 234 pages long. It has. Let's see here, 23 chapters. It covers first steps, which is always good. Are you a survivor? Survive what? Getting started, planning, the basics, framework, shelter, food, water, food, communications, energy, self-defense, first aid, sanitation, grounding yourself, survival team, disaster plan, foundations of preparedness, the bigger picture, let's go camping, hardware versus software, practical capital, homesteading, say that real fast, 4 times in a row, practical capital, homesteading, value, and then it goes into the human factor, and should I stay or should I go? They should have put 2 on there. But interesting thing about this book, it's co-authored actually by one of my favorite post-apocalyptic guys out there, and he's back with us this morning. If you've read the Jakarta Pandemic, then you know who I'm talking about. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning.
Why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are, what you do, and how you give us nightmares.
Thank you. Yeah, especially right now. So Steve Conkley, and my first book was The Jakarta Pandemic, which described a suburban pandemic nightmare scenario, which luckily has not come to bear on us with the Ebola outbreak.
Yet.
And yet, well.
Depends on which website you watch.
That's exactly right. And, past that, I started another series called The Perseid Collapse, which is more of a techno-thriller-based EMP, really everything you could possibly throw at the United States in one book is thrown at the same characters from the Jakarta Pandemic.
Awesome. And it's interesting, we just had an X flare and 5 N flares back to back to back. And we're supposed to get some kind of fancy light show up in the sky here pretty soon. Shoot, I can't remember what they're called.
Solar flares or the...
No.
The Aurora?
No. No, shoot.
Fancy lights sounds good.
Okay, fancy lights in the sky. I'll track it down and share it. But you co-authored this book with a dude named Randall Powers. So what's so special about Randall?
Randy, or Randall, has been... we've been friends for, quite a while now. He has he took an interest in the Jakarta Pandemic probably about a year and a half after I had published it, and asked to do a couple, basically an interview, just a blog-based interview. After that, we really hit it off, and I've had Randy kind of keeping an eye on my, the prepper survival readiness aspect of this new series, the Perseid Collapse series, because I go into depth into certain aspects, and I very quickly get out of my depth, and it's absolutely impossible to get out of. Randy has a very deep knowledge of just about every topic you can imagine, and I felt very comfortable having him kind of watching my back and making suggestions and keeping me relatively straight.
Awesome. Randy, welcome this morning. Randy? Hello?
Hello, good morning. How are we doing?
Good. How are you this morning?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thought we lost you there for a minute. But why don't you tell everybody about yourself, any websites you have, and what's your background?
Well, I am born and raised here in the great state of Georgia. I am a professional journalist by trade, and I've done that across all platforms of media since about the age of 15. So for more than 20 years, it's been my inclination to see a problem, then try to inform other people about it as well as I can. And that sort of led me, eventually, as I got older, that led me towards the idea of readiness, because I'd always practiced it in my life, given that I'd grown up rural. But as I got older and became an adult of sorts, I started to look around the world and see how everything kind of fit together between the economy, energy, and our environment, and how all those things sort of come together, how one really impacts the other in every way, at every turn. And I realized that in our complex society, we're just really vulnerable, and I didn't want to be that vulnerable anymore. So I put on my journalist hat, educated myself, and figured this is a good way to sort of mitigate some of the problems that I could see possibly happening out there in the future. And as I went through that journey, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the process, the nuts and bolts of preparedness, and I made a lot of mistakes. And when I completed my readiness portion, so when I got us to a point where I felt like we were in pretty good shape, I turned to my wife and said, I really think that I'm not the only one who thinks about this stuff. And if I can help somebody else not get lost along the way like we did, then that'll be good. So I decided to start a small little strategy firm, a little consulting firm called Practical Tactical. There's a little website that's associated with it, www.practicaltactical4you.com. There's a blog there. You can read up on all my thoughts on a bunch of different stuff. And then I found Steve's work. And as he explained already, that's been a lot of fun. So that's kind of where I come from.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you one of those creeper kind of guys that read his book and discovered he didn't know what he was talking about, so you figured you better set him straight?
Not exactly, but poking a little fun at Steve, I did say in one of our introductions, the first time I read Jakarta, I said, well, this guy gets it. I said, I don't know if he believes everything he's writing about, but he seems to get it. And I wanted to find out, which is why I sent him an email in the first place.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I wondered about that because he'd referenced something along that line the first time he was on the show. So it's like, you're that guy. But
maybe so, but that's okay. I don't think I'm that big and scary. I think I'm a fairly nice guy. So if I was creeping at all, I think I came at it from hey, maybe we ought to try this.
I secretly think he likes creepers anyways.
Yeah, I do. Well, Randy was one of the first people that seemed to really understand that I did write a book of fiction, and although there's a lot of readiness tenets and concepts in that I did take a lot of liberty in terms of having the main character make mistakes for instructional purposes, whereas a lot of other reviewers and some other readers just lambasted me.
I felt that recently. Yes, like
right.
You can't do that.
Why would he do that? That's this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, yeah. And if you ever watch Friday the 13th, part 9, 10, and 11, they still go into the basement by themselves to check the circuit breaker.
Yeah, because
it's a plot device.
Exactly. So what makes your book different than the rest of them? Because there's a gazillion prepper manuals out there how to find water 12,000 different ways and purify it. But what makes your book different than the rest?
Randy, you want to shoot first?
Sure. What I think it is much like what we try to do here at Practical Tactical. I mean, it had to bleed into this project. And what we try to look at is, like you said, you can figure out 100 different ways to find water, purify it, start a fire, all that sort of stuff. I know what my strong suits are, and although I practice primitive skills and I'm constantly trying to educate myself, I understand that there are a lot of people out there who have a lot more practical information as far as hands-on with that sort of stuff. They've done it their entire lives. I've done it, but I don't have the opportunity to do it every day. So even though I may have the skill set, it's not the sort of thing I feel comfortable telling someone else how to do. So from my perspective, I didn't want this project to be a how-to manual exactly. What I wanted it to be is to take those basic things that everybody has to look at and then apply some context to it, offer a little more depth to the concept of it, and see if I could make someone who totally felt like they were out of their depth and wanted just getting started in the process, I wanted to make them feel better about their opportunity to achieve it and get it right. So I kind of wanted to put some meat on the bone away from the nuts and bolts of the actual acts of preparedness so that you feel good about it and that you understand why it's necessary to do these things and ways that may make it palatable for everybody as opposed to just someone who's interested in the actions of preparedness. Now, that's a huge part of it, but I think the mental side of it is just as important and in many cases more important. And that's kind of what I wanted to bring forward.
Well, the book, it's called Practical Prepping, No Apocalypse Required, an Everyday Approach to Disaster Preparedness. And this is book 1. So I'm assuming there's going to be multiple books.
Yeah, I left it open because every time Randy and I talk, we think of another topic that we either didn't include in that for a reason. Possibly, maybe it's a little more detailed, but yeah. So I definitely foresee another collaboration and maybe digging into the little more of the details that we left out.
Well, your book is almost like getting multiple books in one. And everybody's heard me preach in the past about how important I feel post-apocalyptic, that genre itself, is important. And it's brought a lot of people into preparedness itself.
Yeah.
Which I think is just fantastic. It's almost a shock factor to a good degree. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my goodness, I can see myself in this book, in this scenario, because it's so realistic based upon what's going on out there in the world right now. And maybe I should, look at, some of the information in here. But you guys have taken a couple of your books, Stephen, and yes, you have pieces and parts of that throughout the book. And then, so that's your part of it. And then Randy kind of takes off with that, with the preparedness part of it, and kind of backlogs what you wrote and gives more detailed information.
Right. And that's, and that was obviously by design. I look at myself as more of the comedy relief, maybe, and
no,
yeah, and easing. Like my biggest goal with this, kind of going back to what your question about how this is different is, I wanted this to be conversational, and even even Randy's pieces are very conversational, but you'll definitely get a little more information out of them. But I want to try to ease people into this because I mentioned this in the book. If you bite off more than you can chew, you're going to spit it out. And I think if when people go on some of these big sites or buy these big manuals, I can't imagine they get through more than 30 pages before they're like, forget this.
Oh, one of the biggest things I get is I am so overwhelmed. Where do I start?
Right, and that's why I kind of built up, and I put this in the description. This book is really designed to get you thinking on your level, for what your scenario is. Because I think if everyone just prepared for whatever truly outside their window, the most likely, I call it the survive what scenario, your first one. If they prepared for that, that would be a great step in the right direction. And, you might find out, I want to do more. I want to prepare for a bigger disaster. So I'm a big believer in, just starting small. And, the goal of this book was to try to hopefully ease people into it in kind of a fun way. I mean, it's, I think my, the essays kind of mind bleed right, out of the book and, I make fun of myself. Believe me, I am not a perfect prepper, by any stretch of the imagination, far from it. But I wanted to bring that to light.
It's very entertaining to say the least. But so here's a question for both of you, and Randy, I'll let you answer first. What keeps you awake at night out of all the scenarios out there with everything that's going on? Because people are just like, I just stand there and spin because I don't know which direction to go because it's all coming at the same time.
Well, there are some large overarching concepts that are just sort of like the constant drumbeat that keeps me motivated. But if I were going to look at something that is that's present, that's in our lives daily, I think that's why I was drawn to Steve's work in the first place, because I think that a pandemic is the sort of thing that just we know they're going to happen. They've happened in the past, and I can guarantee you they're going to happen in the future. Just in this millennium, we've had a pandemic outbreak, and although it turned out to not be as bad as they thought it was going to be, we have had experience with that just since, the year 2000. So it's just a matter of time, and it's going to happen. That's probably the one thing that is just ever present and is on my mind a lot. If there's anything else that's out there, it would be one of my root causes, which was just the idea and the acknowledgement, rather, that civil unrest is sort of like the indispensable partner with any preparedness scenario you can imagine. So it doesn't matter if it's because the lights go out and there's an EMP, or there is a major disruption to our complex society that messes up the water supply or food supply or whatever. The next thing that's going to happen is people who are not prepared are going to panic. And unfortunately, humans are the most dangerous animal on the planet, and we get that moniker, legitimately.
Well, just watch Ferguson right now. And
exactly. When people are,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. When people are stressed out and their normal lives get disrupted, whatever the reason, the very first thing that happens is they respond viscerally, and I would just rather not be involved in that in the first place, which is why I prep. But if I have to be involved in it due to something that's not my fault, I didn't choose to be there, I always want to make sure that I have a way to, extract myself from that situation, or at least be prepared to deal with it.
What do you think Stephen's next book should be about?
Oh, well.
You could pick anything.
We're talking about it.
Yeah, well, that's that's why I enjoy Steve's book so much. And this is not just a shameless, hey, how you doing? This is, I think he does a really good job of sort of pulling all the stories together, right? Whether it was in Jakarta, which was kind of a slow burn, there was always the hint that, okay, I've kind of got my home in my suburb under control, but just outside the gates there, things are crazy. To in Perseid, we see that craziness because we're right in the middle of it. So I think he does a pretty good job. I know he's got some ideas, but I think I would read it regardless of what it was. So I don't know if I ought to direct him in any one way. I ought to just let him go. I don't want to stifle the creativity that's out there.
Yeah, I think you're a stalker. Steve.
He's vastly overestimating my creativity, by the way.
Yeah, I'll read whatever he writes. It doesn't matter if it sucks or not. He's just awesome.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, so Stephen, what keeps you awake at night?
So I think we talked about this last time. So I'll reiterate it again because it's just so important to me. Is what keeps me up is any kind of scenario situation that will keep me from getting to my kids. And I talk about it in the book a lot. I spend a lot of time, probably more than I should, and that's one of the areas where I get pretty detailed in terms of a recovery plan. Having all these different scenarios set where the kids know where to go. That really worries me the most, and that can come in any flavor. Like kind of Randy described, some kind of civil disorder, an immediate kind of disaster that just, for whatever reason, puts them out of touch. So I feel, and I even feel that same way in my own house. Just even in the house, when they're home, they're on the other side of the house. We're in the master bedroom. I hear noises. That kind of stuff worries me. And it plays right into, from a post-apocalyptic scenario to just, something happening right there in your neighborhood. But I do agree with Randy. I mean, it's so in a big picture way, kind of talking about the theme he discussed, is I really, I do also worry about how I will be able to respond to this group of people. Hopefully that will never happen, but that don't have any preparations, any readiness at all, and are forced to take very drastic measures to help themselves and help themselves your stuff.
Well, there are, with everything going on in the news right now, specifically with Ebola, and I don't really want to get into that a whole lot, but there's been a lot of preppers that are hitting mainstream media right now, and I see both sides of it, and I know other people do too. One of the things as somebody in preparedness, we preach all the time is OPSEC. You don't want people to know what you have. You want to keep it quiet and things like that. And we're seeing this surge of, panic, basically, because depending on which news site that you read, and we talked about this the last time too, I called it Ebola envy going on out there, and it's like, who's going to get it first? And I have it now, and I might have it too, and maybe I might have it too, and somebody sneezed, so I might have it over here too, and which has thrust several people that I know in the preparedness world out into mainstream, and it makes me a little nervous because we've been low key for a long time. It's kind of like the backbone, and you got to get the message out there, but I'm concerned that it might be putting it out there in the wrong way.
Right.
And so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me go. I'll keep this pretty quick. I agree with you, and I think with anything like this, and I don't know if the sites and the people you're talking about are really putting out there as in like this is going to happen and it's going to be the end of the world. Is that what you're seeing, or is that kind of, or
not
or just...
so much? It's more like, some of the stuff that I've seen, there is that stuff because there are a lot of prepping sites out there that just came up. I mean, we've been around for a few years now, and just in this last year alone, we've seen so many new I'm air quoting preparedness sites come up that are there just to make money.
And there's about 100 new Ebola books, all about 20, 30 pages long.
There's a stuffed toy that you can buy that was on the news that has just skyrocketed. It's like a little fuzzy Ebola thing.
I was considering changing my cover and the entire title of my first book to the Ebola pandemic, but I couldn't bring myself to make that kind of a commercial change. So no, I agree.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I agree, and I think there's always a backlash, and that's what unfortunately, because this, like you said, this is kind of like put a spotlight and it's not like the spotlight found them. They've found the spotlight almost purposefully, but there will be a backlash when this all settles down. Let's just hope that the whole Ebola crisis kind of fizzles and goes away. I think then you're going to see a backlash against the prepping community because, there's already this stigma that, preppers are selfish and they're hoarding and they're just out for themselves and, they're perpetuating this, selfish, hoarding mentality. I think we'll see that a lot stronger this time. It's not going to happen now because, well, they might be right. So no one likes to hedge their bets against that now, but unfortunately, there is going to be created a kind of an us versus them sort of dynamic, and like I said, if this all, like I hope it all, I don't want Ebola to take off just so this won't happen, but I suspect there'll be a backlash, and it won't be, it's not going to be the end of the world, for the readiness folks, but it's never, it'll set everything back, like what I'm trying to accomplish with this book. I think will be set back a little bit.
Yeah, Mom with the prep is in the chat room, and she said, plus some preppers are making national news about how preppers are handling this too.
Right.
So Randy, what's your take on it? Do you think it's good that it's, out there as big as it's gotten, or do you think that maybe we need to back up a little bit and just stay a little low key? And when do you think, as a prepper yourself, when are you going to fade into the backdrop?
Well, see, this gets right to the crux of some of the stuff I just don't like. I don't like about the preparedness community as a whole, and that is not a flame. That is just is part of natural, like, human habit. This stuff sort of just happens. And I also don't like it from a journalist point of view, because I know you know the phrase, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So we have this sickness here in the country, and now it's headlining every newscast with all the dramatic music and all the scary pictures, and everyone is doing whatever they can to profit from it, whether it be in books or ratings or whatever it is. And I think my whole thing on it is, as far as OPSEC and keeping it to yourself, absolutely, there's a place for that. But at the same time, remember, the angle I come at this from is one of wanting to help other people not be overwhelmed from the very beginning. So I sort of reject that whole, description of the situation that's full of hyperbole and scare tactics and things like that. I think that that's our entire approach is, look, everything doesn't have to be the end of the world. Ebola is not the end of the world. I mean, for goodness sakes, Kim Kardashian, I saw this online the other day.
Yeah,
Kim Kardashian, right, married to more Americans than have actually died from this disease. And it's just, you just have to have some perspective. And the only way to have the appropriate perspective is to search for your information across, all areas of information that's out there for you, right? It doesn't matter where it is. Don't close yourself off. Get all the information you can get, and then develop your opinion, right? Make your own opinion. Don't let somebody else tell you what it's all about. And I kind of feel that way about preparedness, too. We are very you-centric when it comes to preparedness. What's right for me is probably not right for you, if for no other reason than because we're not living in the same place. We don't have the same sort of resources to draw on, right? So you have to develop your own plan, and OPSEC's tied right to that. Yes, I am going to keep my lips shut about some of the stuff that I'm doing, but when we're talking about the basics, well, I want to see my neighbor, get their ducks in a row too, because the more prepared they are, the less I have to worry about some repercussions that are going to affect me down the line due to an action that they might take because they're unprepared. So I think, yeah, you're never going to tell everybody everything, but at the same time, I want to be able to put a good foot forward and help people wherever I can. I just think that information and calm, right, is the way to go when it comes to this sort of stuff, both from a prepper's personal point of view as well as just from the media. I just calm down and keep your facts straight. You know?
We talk about, I refer to it as cooking spaghetti. You throw it on the wall to see if it sticks. It's done. Yeah. Then it's real. With the stuff that falls off, just take a deep breath, give it a minute. And then whatever falls off, what you have left is probably the truth. But,
and I'm sorry, I need to answer the other part of the question about prepared preppers and the idea of it's going to take a step back. I think, I think if you start at a basic level and you're focused on the basics, right, there's so much involved with actually getting preparedness right, even for your personal situation. And this brings me back to, you may have the phrase, bean bullets and Band-Aids, right? But do you understand what it takes to build a good community? And I am someone who believes that community is absolutely going to be a vital part of any viable preparedness plan. And the bigger the disaster you might be considering, the stronger your community had better be. Mm-hmm. And by community, I don't mean like my entire suburb. That could be 10 people that's in my personal group that we've pulled together, but you need to have them out there. So community is a big part of that. I think that when you take it from a building block approach, step by step, and you address every area that needs to be addressed in a holistic preparedness preparedness plan, then you really don't have to worry about that whole the idea that it's going to be frowned upon or anything like that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What's more important is that you know what's going on in your world and that you're trying to do everything you can to help somebody else. So just my thoughts, but I think you guys are probably right. There's going to be a backlash, but I just think that if you're doing it the right way, the idea of preparedness is never going to be a bad idea.
Well, let me ask you this, Grandy. Talking about your neighbor and not showing your hand, how would you approach them? What advice would you give to approach someone not knowing their mindset and not giving away your hand?
Well, it's just like I actually have the situation going on right now. It's funny that you should ask this, and Steve said something about this a minute ago. I actually have a neighbor who happens to be a coworker who is like they've just gotten on board with the concept of preparedness, and they're coming at it from a position of, I do a lot of traveling, so I think I ought to have a kit in my car that's going to help me out, right? So they started asking questions, and we addressed his specific questions about stuff he might ought to consider keeping in his vehicle. But then he's like, oh, well, yeah, let me think about this for my house, and let me think about it for how am I going to get from work back home. And we just took it from a very basic level and moved up, right? We started small, and you can scale this up to whatever you need it to be. So if I'm talking to my next door neighbor, I'm going to approach it exactly the same way. I'm going to be like, hey, did you see this weather that's moving in? Do you have firewood? If the power goes out, are you going to be okay? And just very generic sort of probing questions. And then if that spurs them to ask me questions, I can respond appropriately. But I just don't think, I'm not someone who's going to push it on anyone. Preparedness is a choice. We all make choices in this life. It's one that I've chosen to make. And if these people choose to not make that choice, that's their right as an American citizen, right? They can do whatever they want. But I know at that point, okay, we had a discussion, you made your decision, and now I know where you are. So I'm not saying I would classify that person as a threat. I would never do that. But it is information that I would have. I would know their situation better than they would know mine. And in the game, and I hate to refer to it as a game, but in a game like that, information is king. It's power. It gives you, if nothing else, options on how to navigate the situation that's laid out in front of you.
So then you can go in your basement and have pieces of paper up all over the wall and mark your neighbors on who has preps and who doesn't.
Oh, a full map like out of the Jakarta pandemic. I've got the entire suburb laid out on a big wall. There's red string from home to home, right?
See, I'm thinking that's a little paranoid thinking there.
I think.
I mean, what kind of warped mind would come up with something like that?
Yeah, and right. The good thing is that in my neighborhood, that map, I don't need to make a map because there's basically like one or two people that I think have done anything, which is probably my failure, honestly, to considering what Randy's saying. But I should probably just give everyone a copy of this book and the Jakarta Pandemic and leave it on their doorstep and tell them to read, and we'll have a big neighborhood discussion about it.
Well,
in all seriousness, sorry to jump in, but in all seriousness, that's something. One of the things we try to do is we have a division or an initiative that's like a community initiative where we reach out to our local suburban community, but also into our larger city community at large, where we reach out to the public library. We go give talks to just explain the basics to people, just to make them aware. If they don't want the information, that's their choice, but we just put that stuff out there. We give freely of our time and of our resources just to share the information. And inside my neighborhood, that's something that we do is, and I plan on doing this fall, actually, have another meeting, is flyers on the doors. And we're just going to say, hey, come and let's have a conversation. I know some basic stuff and, just get to know one another. Because it's amazing how many people we don't know who live just within a half mile of our front door. So I intend to remedy that a little bit and just sort of reach out into the community and say, hey, let's have a conversation.
Now, one thing that you wouldn't expect in a book written by a couple guys is you guys actually have a recipe section in your book. If you go to page, who came up page 170? Who came up with this?
I did, Steve. No, actually, this is an actual recipe from survival school. I'm not kidding.
Do you want to not tell people or make them buy the book and read the recipe?
No. You're talking about the lemonade recipe?
No. Well,
which one?
Is that what you refer to it as? Is lemonade?
Forest lemonade, is that right?
Forest lemonade, yeah. Which where is that? Is that the camping?
Yeah.
Yep.
I missed the forest lemonade reference to it.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Go ahead, Bear. All right, Bear.
So no, this is I mean, I honestly think that this recipe, this was just meant to keep a bunch of cadets and midshipmen busy, while we're out just literally sitting in the forest. There's only so much you can do, with the limited amount of supplies and stuff. But we actually did this. We spent a lot of time, hunting down ants, pinching the heads off because they will bite, and mash them. Yeah, you mash them up in a cup, a little canteen cup, pour some water in, and if you want to spare some of your, sweet, they always have this nasty drink mix, bug juice powder, no pun intended. And it was very bitter, but hey, it was something to do, and it does provide some types of, I think, amino acids. I can't remember exactly what, but
it was something to do.
It was something to do, and then this is just the tip of the iceberg. I didn't want to get too gross, but we did a lot of trapping and snaring, and we found some very. Do you want to hear this?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Because I think of something. It's something to do. Is how we came up with cow tipping.
Right.
This
had a survival purpose supposedly. So, like I said, maybe it's just more keeping your mind busy while you're out when you're out there. But we learned how to acquire vegetables from the stomachs of animals we captured or caught or killed, trapped. So we did that and you basically squeeze it out like toothpaste. It's like this nasty green, obviously not digested substance, but it's nutrient rich.
Well, hey, it's breakfast time.
It's good for Right. Now I learned a lot of interesting things. How to eat, how to actually get some meat out of a turtle, and anything we could catch out there was fair game. And you didn't just eat the meat; it was like every aspect of it.
You waste not.
There was no waste at all. I didn't make a little squirrel cap or anything like that. But it was interesting. I have more.
I could see that. I've got a Daniel Boone cap.
I'm glad you appreciated that recipe, though.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck? And it's like, okay. If I'm bored in the woods, I doubt if I would actually sit there and think about pulling the heads off of ants and making tea with them. I think, women think of ants, they think of where's the chocolate kind of thing.
Right.
But, pulling the heads off, poor little things. But, we've always pulled the butts off the lightning bugs to make our jewelry with, too, so.
Poor bugs.
Oh, yeah. Growing up, that was always a big thing.
See, Randy knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, I have friends that live in Colorado now that don't even have lightning bugs because of their altitude. I thought everybody had lightning bugs.
That would be wrong. I think that would be rejected out of hand by my wife. She marks the seasons for me. She's the one who really keeps us in tune. We sort of mentioned this in the book, but it's also an underlying philosophy of the sort of stuff we kind of talk about and teach, which is you just have to be in touch with your area, right, your situation and that sort of thing. And in my own life, that's one of the things that Alice does. Sorry, Alice is my wife. She kind of keeps us in tune with the season because she's always telling me, okay, now we can plant the early stuff in the garden. And then once her birthday happens to be on the first day of spring every year. So it's not long after that until she's pointing out to me, hey, look, you can see the lightning bugs, the fireflies, you can see them rising from the fields at the tree line, and that's when I know that summer's here. And then when we notice that they go away, that's how I notice that fall's on the way. I mean, so it's really kind of cool.
That's nice that spouses are on the same page because it sucks truly when they're not,
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about two guys writing a book with a recipe in it. I think one of the things, and
at least we didn't bring up tampons, right?
Right.
That's the next chapter.
I saw the supply list, and it did have condoms in it.
Yeah,
Imagine that.
Well, there's a lot of useful things you can do. So, it's one of those things where two guys write a book, and you're like, okay, are there recipes and stuff like that? But one of the things that I think that we kind of have in the back of our mind all the time is it's not two guys in a survival situation or thinking about a survival situation. I think we both take the approach that, we have partners. We're both married, and whether you're married or not, it doesn't matter. But we completely embrace the idea of having a partner in the process. So whether it's just a member of your group or team or however you want to define it, or if it's just your modular family, right? Your husband and or wife, your child, whatever it is, I think we fully embrace that concept. Like, we don't ever think about it as just a guy, from a guy's perspective. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that we're both fortunate enough to have very strong, very capable women in our lives, which remind us daily that there's more than one perspective that needs to be considered. I know I'm very thankful for that. It's enriched both my preparedness as well as just my existence. So I don't know if Steve wants to piggyback on that, but I think women who read this book are going to get just as much out of it as any guy would.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm the weak link in our group here. No, I'm kidding. I was gonna say I basically every month I just kind of judge and try to improve how much weight everyone in my family can carry, and that's a joke too, sort of. No, I agree. I agree. I mean, it's I think I bring this up in the book a lot. Is you're only as strong as I would say the weakest member of your group, and I am not in any way tell my wife if she listens to this, I'm not implying that the women or the children are the weak links, but we all bring something to the table, and you're the whole. Your group is strength is the whole sum of everyone's strengths and weaknesses as well. So, and I learned that in the military. That was constantly reinforced and in many cases pounded through very cold water and other borderline torture methods in the various trainings I've been in. That you are literally only as strong as the. You have to work toward bringing everyone up, up to speed, or at least be able to do, to accomplish the entire group's mission. Everyone does different things. So I agree. I think anyone can read this book. It's certainly not, and Laura, I hope you agree as well that it's definitely not oriented toward men. Although I do make some jokes about in a bumbling way, because I think caught up with like I got to buy the latest and slick rifles and this or that, and I think the women are typically the more responsible financially, and they're more in tune with the actual operations of the families and kind of put the. Do you agree?
I was going to ask you that. Do you guys see a natural division or progression, let's say, towards a particular area of preparedness when it comes to the sexes? I know, in my family, my husband's brilliant with firearms. That's his knowledge base. And I give that to him wholeheartedly because he knows every firearm that's out there, pieces and parts, and how they work. And I pick up, the canning and, all that kind of stuff. So do you guys see the same thing?
Well, first, don't sell yourself short on the firearms aspect.
Well, no, I do. I mean,
I know. Very quickly, and then I'll let Randy answer. I think it's a natural division, and it's not dependent. I'm not saying the women go to the cooking and the gardening, and the men go to this. It really has to do with your background. Like I have a firearms tactics background, so that is always going to be my area and my concern. But everyone needs to be able to do everything. I've totally embraced gardening, and I love it. I mean, I enjoy it. But it was definitely my wife's idea, and it's really kind of her baby. out there. I kind of build the things and do stuff like that. But yeah, I think a natural division kind of occurs. I just don't think there's any right or wrong. Like this is for the women, this is for the men, this is for the children. I think it all depends on the group.
There's a lot of truth in that. I think in my personal experience, though, and again, you must understand that I am just an extremely fortunate individual. But as far as my partner, but there's just so many things that you would maybe consider would fall along a sexual line, like the women do this, the men do this, where we absolutely just cross over. Like we completely destroy the stereotypes.
How important is that, do you feel?
For me, it is gigantic because because not only do I believe in the idea of cross training, right? You have to know everything. You don't have to know everything about everything, but you have to be viable in every area, right? You have to at least be exposed to it. Again, we take a holistic, comprehensive approach, or at least we try to. So for me, it's gigantic. It's where we start everything. And yes, this may have been my idea at the very beginning, but the moment Alice listened to what I had to say, she's like, nope, completely rational. I'm on board, and we are going to do this. So it doesn't matter if we're playing Batman and the Boondocks, taking our tactical firearms training from our currently employed, military buddies, to spending a weekend back home where we grew up, learning about how to can this or grow that kind of fruit tree or whatever. It's a we thing. We do it together, and we prioritize doing it together. So, again, in my world, it's gigantic. But trust me, Alice can shoot the wings off a gnat, at 50 yards with her AR, whereas I could go out here and work in the chicken coop all day. I mean, we absolutely cross over. But again, awesome. I know how fortunate I am, and not everybody's in that situation. Doesn't mean you can't get there. I think there's a way to coach your partner and help your partner in areas where they may be deficient. It's all about how you broach the topic, though.
Yeah. Laura, can I just add? I was just going to add to this. It's really easy to let one person run with this in a household. Very easy. Right. I mean, Randy and Alice's setup, they sound like they've really kind of reached a great equilibrium. I'll just admit, like I'm the first to point out my own flaws. We're nowhere even close to that. We're just we're busy in our own minds, of course. We both work all day, and it's just once again my fault. I mean, I definitely I shoulder the burden, but I'm trying to shift it over, and that's why I like things like getting out camping, where you can do this kind of stuff in a family fun environment, and you don't want to make it a boot camp type of situation, or no one's going to have fun. But there's ways to get it in there and introduce people to different concepts like navigation, map reading. It's all good, and everyone likes it. So I think it's really easy to let this happen, and I bet it happens in a majority of quote unquote prepping households.
Do either of you take your kids out geocaching?
I've never actually done that. I have several friends who do that, so I've seen the process. I have never actually done that myself, though. I know it can be a whole lot of fun. It can be a fun day in the woods, for sure.
Oh, yeah. When we lived in Cleveland,
that's cool.
There was a bike path. If you guys don't know what it is, I should explain it for you guys listening. Geocaching is people go out in all kinds of places and hide things. And these could be anywhere from the size of a brick down to a micro tube that they hide something in. Most of them you can sign like a guest list, and then you can go online and input the navigational latitude, longitude stuff. There's a whole website. Just go to geocaching.com. But when we lived in Cleveland, there was a bike path that ran along the back of our house. And in the summertime, you kind of sleep with your windows open. And, my husband and I were like, do you hear voices in the middle of the night? And it's like, yeah. And we noticed this a couple nights, different times. So we go out looking, don't see anything. Then we got into geocaching. And lo and behold, on the back side of our fence, on the side where the bike path was at, somebody had hidden a geocache. And that's what people flashlights out there with. And you have to watch because the police will visit you. I'm just telling you.
That's funny.
Depending on where these things are hidden. I mean, there's a Menards here in town that we have that has a geocache in it. You have to go find the correct one, and you have to lift up the base on the bottom of it, and the geocache is in there. So if you're doing that at 3 o'clock in the morning, you might kind of look suspicious.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great thing to put in your neighbor's yard, you know, or someone across town you don't like, you know, you go on the sites and put label the geocache in their yard. I have heard of this, and I always wondered. I haven't really known anyone that's done it, and that sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, you can collect coins and all kinds of stuff. It's something. It's fun for the kids, and they learn navigation when you brought that up. So if you guys could give a new prepper, because that's basically what your book is tailored towards, any advice to get started, Randy, what would you say to them?
I would say the central theme of our deal is you should look at what you have going on, figure out what it is that you feel you need to prepare for, and then take a deep breath and start at the beginning. Right, you mentioned it earlier. If you go, or maybe it was Steve, if you go to these larger sites that may be more popular, you can find all the information you want, and all those things are great. But if you don't have context to go with it, you're quickly going to drown. Most people, at least the people that I've dealt with, it just overwhelms them and they walk away. And that's what we don't want to happen. So I just think, look at where you are, figure out what it is you need to get ready for, and then take a building block approach. And we offer up several very cool, I think they're very cool concepts and tools in the book to help you do that. Things like the preparedness prism, the practical tactical cycle, that sort of stuff. That's in the book. That'll help you think through these decisions and make choices that are best for you. And all of that is tied around the framework of the kit to fit concept, which is you get your plan first and then you outfit your plan and not do it the other way around. Because I think you get the most bang for your buck that way, and you make the most daily progress. You're moving forward. And success and accomplishment is the kind of thing that a beginning prepper needs to see. They need to see concrete results, and I think we help you get there in a hurry. So I would say start with you and keep yourself on the line.
So basically, if you're in Indiana, there's no sense prepping for a hurricane.
Right. I would say that's probably well down your list, yeah.
Okay. Steve, what do you think?
Tornado. You have to prepare for a tornado.
Oh, good Lord. Don't even go there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, my wife has a lot of questions about those. We can talk offline.
Well, actually, there was a report in the news today, is Indianapolis going to be the new Ferguson? So that was a little kind of give me the willies in the stomach. It's like,
oh, wow.
Boy.
Wonderful. I'll skip passing that one along, if you don't mind. So I agree with it. I think if you're going to start anywhere, you have to really analyze, ask yourself, survive what. I don't like to waste time. I don't have time to waste. I certainly don't like to waste money. I have the same thing. I don't have money to waste. I say some call it lazy. I call it efficient. Statistically, you just really have to. I think you should start with what the most likely scenario is to affect you. It's not zombies. It's probably not pandemics, even though that's on everyone's mind. It's really regional. If you're in California, it could be an earthquake. It could be the drought, civil unrest. It varies. For me, it's a snowstorm. Being able to endure maybe a 1 to 2 week period without power, keeping everyone warm, fed, and off each other's backs here. I think if you start small, get that covered, that will do, like Randy said, it'll boost your confidence, because you are, because odds are you'll probably put that into practice within a short period of time. And once you see that, what a little bit of preparedness can do for you and how it can change how you respond to a scenario, a disaster, I think that'll get you ready for maybe taking the next steps, or just staying where you are if that's where you want to be.
Awesome. We're down to about probably 3 minutes. So I always think it's 4 because I've never nailed the ending of this show.
I was going to warn you, but no, you got it.
how do they find your book? How do they find you? Stephen, we'll let you go first.
So if very easily to find this book, if you went on Amazon.com and typed in Stephen Conkley Practical Prepping or Randall Powers Practical Prepping, you'll find our book. And it looks like you put a link up on the
it's in the chat room.
In the chat room, so very easy to find.
Yeah, I put it up on our pink page too, so people can find it.
Cool.
And Randy, where can they find you? What do you have going on with your business itself?
Well, like I said, it's it's just something we kind of do on the side, and you can always find us at the website. I gave out the address earlier, but just again, it is Practical Tactical 4 YOU.com. The blog is there. There's all sorts of fun videos, and I'm absolutely seemingly ever present on social media. So whether it's Twitter, we have a Facebook page. You can reach out to me via email. I love correspondence and communication. So if you reach out to me, you will hear back. It might take a beat, but you will hear back from me. And I love to talk about this stuff. So because I'm always learning too. So just drop me a line, let me know what's going on. But you can find everything at the website. It's right there. Mm-hmm. And hopefully some stuff that will entertain you as well. Not just, the preparedness stuff, but hopefully there's a couple of things in there that you'll just maybe learn something else about the broader world picture as a whole.
Awesome. Yep. Now, are you both coming back tonight to play some Conflicted?
I will be.
And I talked to some. I'll actually be at work, but thankfully I work with awesome people, and I think I'm going to be able to make it. So, by all means, hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed. But I hope to be here.
Okay.
It's a showdown, Georgia versus Maine.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we'd hate to pit you guys against each other because that would just be awful.
We're too good of friends, but it'll be fun.
Right.
Well, I greatly appreciate both you guys being on here. But the book, Practical Prepping, No Apocalypse Required by Stephen Conkley and Randall Powers. Awesome book. You guys do a great job mingling both the nonfiction and the fiction together.
Thank you very much.
You guys have a great day, and I'll see you tonight then.
Yep, see you tonight. Thanks for having us. Yep.
Bye-bye.